I think I have a very difficult task. First of all, it's after lunch. I think I can manage that. But to be after a Nobel Prize speaker who has such a mission, I mean, this guy had a mission, I think it's pretty difficult. And particularly, you have heard about business models already before. You have seen what Alex Osterwalder did. So I can just say one question to you. You should really know the answer after these 2 weeks. Why should your business exist? What's the value you create for you, for your customers, and society? And you want to know, and you will see a lot of similarities between what Alex was doing and I was doing, and it's pretty simple. I'm not that practical, thank you very much. I also got my PhD, and Alex's PhD is based on mine, but he's much more famous for the work. And that's very simple, because timing is so important. And this is one thing we usually forget, that it's not having the first idea is important, it's executing it in the right time frame. Because when I wrote my PhD on business model innovation, and I think I was the first to coin the term, nobody was interested in it. That was 15 years ago, and people said like, well, we don't need business models. Why do we need business models? We have great products, we bring products to the market, and then we have great firms afterwards. And we saw it 15 years ago that this was not true, that the time was not right. And now everybody talks about business model as a huge hype. And now I'm more on the side of saying, okay, slowly please, slowly. Because it's more than just filling in the business model canvas. Because the canvas is just an idea. You have to execute it later on in reality. And quite often we forget very important parts, the soft factors. Because what you have on the canvas is very technocratical. Yeah, you can be an engineer and say, okay, we optimize everything, but in the end you need a team which executes your business model in high uncertain environments. Because all ideas you have here look pretty good in the first sight, but then you have to test it with customers, and suddenly everything changes. That's the reason why it's so important to start lean, because nobody knows exactly what the future will look like. And particular business is the opposite, actually, of science. What he said, in science, there's truth. There's not too much truth in business. Because a lot of people explain their success in hindsight, but they had no idea why they're successful when they're planning their idea. And I think it's very important to understand this, that there's not a perfect model you can start with. It's all about testing and learning from the market. And actually, I would, if I'm the coordinator of this course, I would do it a little bit differently, because the first group would be all about having an idea, and then you would go to your customers and test it. Because what do you sit here? I mean, most of the time I can fill up, like who has smart houses here? We can fill up everything already on the canvas, but it has nothing to do with reality, because house owners are kind of strange bunch, because they're slow. You renovate your house technology only every 20 years. How do you get into a market which takes 20 years to change technology? And then you have government regulations. People who install it takes much longer to do it. I'm very much into the subject. That's the reason why I know it. It takes time, much longer than you think. And this is all about what you should ask yourself in the end. And that's the reason why I even put I liked it when Kola introduced me as not on a philosophical ground. The first question is very philosophical. Why should you exist? Because as a human being, you have a right to exist. In German, we say Daseinsberechtigung. There's a right to exist. But as your business, you have no right to exist, except create happy customers who pay you, and then you get the money back from you pay back your investors. Short introduction of myself. I come from a country which is very famous for coffee. So coffee machines. Any idea which country this is? Where's most of the coffee machines from Starbucks come from? Switzerland, exactly. So could you imagine that this country where the salary level is ridiculous high, they're still manufacturing coffee machines? Actually, all kitchens from McDonald's is from a Swiss company called Franke. Can you imagine? Why is that possible? That they're still manufacturing in a country where everybody believes that we're only bankers. And the other interesting thing is the idea of business models does not come from the US. It's a Swiss product because Alex Osterwalder is also Swiss. So why in the world is this little country still producing stuff like this? And I think it's very important to understand they stick to the core. The core is mechanical engineering. And I still believe we should have not only IT-based business models. There should be some patents at least, some ideas, some physical stuff involved in the whole issues. Because the guy you will have on Wednesday, he will say, no more apps, please. Because it's so easy to program now with apps that it's very easy to enter the market, but it's also very easy for everybody else to enter the market. So the question is, how can you build a long-lasting business? A short introduction of myself, that's me. I'm the guy here in the snow. I love ski mountaineering. And you see, it's not always fun. You need a lot of bad weather to become really good, because of course everybody sees pictures only like this usually. We love, great skiing pictures, but there's a hard work, and a lot of hard work like this to get to this point of, or in time. This is pretty much like what entrepreneurship is all about. Most of the time you see only what works. You see the survivors. We don't look at the losers, because from the ideas usually 50% fail immediately, but we don't talk about it. We only see the survivors, and then they explain in hindsight why they became successful. I think from somebody who is really in science, that is a pretty bad scientific approach to looking at entrepreneurship. But this is the reason why I sit here, because training like this, you see I'm smiling still there, because it was the most ridiculous circumstances you can ever have for skiing. We had so much fun actually, because it was the right team. Everybody collapsed at that day, because it was a condition you can't ski. But probably was one of the best days we had on our ski team, because the team was the ones, was the core, which stayed together for a lot of trainings. And this is the same team here when it comes to good weather conditions. And because we worked in harsh conditions, it worked very well also under good conditions. And what is important is we are so focused. We have boxes. We think in boxes. And we can't escape our boxes. Most of the people think in products. We like our idea. We think it's great. But we need new boxes to understand a little bit more what is possible. So it's a test. It's a quiz, right? You are my student. Just read what you see now, fast.
AI3C.
A, what again?
I3C.
Okay. Most people say A, B, C, right? You're too good already. So what do you read now?
12, 13, 14.
It's the same, actually. But depending what angle you look at the same problem, a lot of things open up. And this is very important. We need new boxes to see new opportunities in life. For example, diversity is very important in teams. For example, you're a male-dominated team and you want to do something with food baskets. Well, half of the population is missing. So probably go and get a little bit more diverse from your background. And why is it so important? Because quite often we are so close to the problem that we don't even see the issue anymore. So can anybody read this here? Probably the people in the back room can read. Can you read this? No, wait. Anybody can read it easily?
No sex causes bad.
Okay, now everybody can do this, please. This, like this. Can you read it suddenly? Yeah. No sex causes bad. Not like this. Make it like the Chinese. Sorry for rational. So this is so obvious. If you stand far away, it's so easy to read. But if you stand here, you have no idea what it is. And we are standing too often, much too close to our problems. And in our case, we stand too close towards our product. We love our product, but we don't see really what's behind the product. Why is it important that this product should go to the market? And one of the core insights you should take home is we need new boxes for fresh ideas, and we see only what we're able to see. Don't think that there is rationality out there beyond mathematics, because we are talking about human being. And human beings are not predictable. This is exactly what the guy with the Nobel Prize said. I don't like politicians. But unfortunately, politicians have voters who behave very irrational when it comes to mathematics. But when it comes to the viewpoint of the voter, of the politician to be re-elected, they behave extremely rational. But it's the point of view where you stand where it becomes important. So now I want to test a little bit your viewpoints. What do you think about this firm? Would you invest in this firm? The firm dominates the global market with a market share of 40% and has outperformed technology giants like Siemens and Motorola. No other firm brings out more innovations, around 80 new products per year, to the market. And it's the brand adored by youngsters. I mean, would you invest in that firm? That's one of the greatest firms possible. Would you invest in this firm?
Practically, yes.
Hmm?
Practically, yes.
Yes, of course. Who would not invest in this firm?
They're already so big, so I think
Oh, the market is growing, still growing. The market is growing. So they can have even the 40% of the market is growing. It's pretty good. Any idea how your investment would have performed in the last 3 years, 4 years? This is the global leader in its industry. And almost now they fight against bankruptcy. Any idea with which company it is? It's Nokia. So everything we believe is very innovative. They spend a hell lot on R&D. They have product innovations like hell. This is the roadmap they have. They outperform every competitor possible in the world. And of course, you know what happened in somewhere in 2007. There came one company which spends, just listen to it, a tenth of R&D than Nokia. Apple spent a tenth only on R&D. And this one device killed a firm which had a device for everybody. And you heard from Ala before why this could be the case. Because Nokia thinks in devices, and Apple thinks about platform. And about value proposition, not about products anymore. It's what you can do with your device. And it's interesting, I love Nokia. I loved Nokia, actually. Ever since I met them in '94, when I studied in Sweden, it was interesting how innovative they were. Because they brought not new devices to the market, they brought the idea of consumer electronics to the mobile handset market. Before, you can't remember, most of you can't remember that was technology-driven firms like Motorola, Siemens. They were technology-driven. You had a big brick, and everybody adored that this brick would work for 5 years. Who has a 5-year-old telephone? Good. Do you still use it?
I have more than one, that's why I'm using it.
Okay, exactly. But it's interesting because they designed something people didn't want. Didn't want to last. So Nokia were the guys who brought out cool devices. You remember the banana telephone from Nokia, the slider? All the Matrix fans loved that telephone. They were the coolest gang. And then somebody said, I don't care about devices anymore. We compete on platforms. And suddenly it's not that important anymore if you have the newest device. It is important that you can run the newest software on top of it. Who has an iPhone here? It's all the same device. We could all put it on the same pile and then redistribute any of the iPhones back to you and you would scream. It's the same hardware, but it's the most personal device you probably ever had in your life. And Nokia had the idea, you need a personal device which looked different. So for the girls, they designed pink stuff with blinky, shiny Swarovski diamonds on it. Yeah, but girls didn't want to have that. They wanted to have a telephone which worked. This is pretty common, actually, that usability is something which goes beyond sex, is beyond age groups. That's the first customer segment where they didn't focus on age segment. They focused on people who just love to use the telephone for what it's being made for. Ease of use. And this stretches from people from 14 to 80. The guys from Nokia always had a device for everybody. And it was interesting when you talked to a Nokia manager and said, like, what's the right device for me? They said, like, oh, we have so many. It's kind of difficult to tell you what's the right device for you. They even could not understand what device fitted best what customer segment. And these guys were so customer driven that they outperformed the market, just with 1/10 of the R&D budget of Nokia. Another question. Which innovation expanded the global addressable market for mobile communication the most? Anybody who, or you can also say, which is probably the innovation which fostered global development the most? Is it government aid? What was it? What innovation made this possible? Come on, I know it's lunch, after lunch. Any idea?
Fast internet.
Fast internet? So do you think the Indians have fast internet in every village? I think, yes, could be. Any other idea?
Radio signal.
Radio signal in general, I think.
Based on a radio signal.
I put it after the invention of the mobile telephony itself.
But mobile is based on radio technology.
Yeah, I mean, it's the whole radio, but we introduced it in the developed countries, and most people said it's impossible to use it in developing countries because they could not afford it. But now in Egypt, you have 85% penetration rate. 65% of the population can read, but 85% can use a mobile phone. What made this possible? Looking beyond traditional innovation. Come on, any idea?
Ability to add apps and customize your cell phone.
Do you think it's important for these guys here to have a customer service?
Basically, yeah.
Look, there's only one unhappy guy here. And this is the guy without a phone. How is it possible that in Tanzania, everybody has, I mean, not everybody, I think they have 50, 55% or 60% mobile phones. Why do guys in Kenya has the most advanced mobile payment system? It's not the developing countries, or developed countries, is Kenya, Safaricom. Why are they so advanced? What made it possible? Okay. Now go back to really your customer insights. How do you sell these guys a phone? Let's make it like a customer process. Go into the head of customer. Okay, let's take him here with a blue hat. He wants to have a new phone. So he comes to your shop. What's your first reaction? You have to think from the customer perspective, please. Because this is exactly what you have to do in your customer insights development later on to get the right value proposition. You have to understand this. So, when he comes into the shop, what do you do first?
Close the doors.
Why? No, he's a good customer. Why should you close the doors? I hear some prejudices there.
Ask him what he needed phone for.
I think it's very clear why people who live dispersed over the countryside need for emergency a phone. I mean, this is so obvious. He wants to probably know the sheep prices in Nairobi because in the moment his traders always betray him because he says, oh, nobody needs sheep. Now he can phone Kenya or text them to get the real prices. So there's a lot of use cases for this guy why he needs a mobile. There's a lot of cases. Or get a doctor. I mean, very basic things. Okay, there's a reason why he needs a phone. Okay, how do you do the billing? How do you do the billing? How is the classical way of doing bills? And how do you do this?
Pay as you go.
Yep. Who has pay-as-you-go or prepaid called? Oh, and the rest is with bills. Because how in the world, because in the past, only the classical postpaid was the revenue model people thought in. And this guy does he have an address? Yes. Do they have an address where he gets regularly his mail?
No.
Probably yes. They're not that bad. Yes, probably. But now we get to the third point. Does he have a credit history to check? No, no credit history. No income statement, nothing. So in the past, this market was impossible to tap because you had no way to get the money from these guys. There was a huge chance that you would love to use the phone, but there was no way how to get your money. So the revenue model was unclear. And it was actually pay-as-you-go or prepaid, which made it possible that these untapped markets in Latin America, South America, Africa, Asia became mobile heavens. And it starts already in countries like Italy, where we have a 70% prepaid market share. Why do you think Italians love prepaid? Is there somebody from Italy here? Okay, do you have a prepaid in Italy? But why do you think Italians love prepaid?
I think that maybe teenagers have not adults.
It's actually 70% prepaid in Italy. How many mobiles do you have?
Just one.
You just have one. But how many mobiles usually, or some Italians have? Only one? Because, I mean, you have a penetration rate from 110 or 120%. Because people have just not one mobile, they have a second mobile. And because beside their regular job, they might have a second job. They have beside their one spouse, they have another. So it's suited somehow the Italian phenomenon. It's interesting, that's only Italy, which is so prepaid oriented in Europe. The Nordic countries don't know the concept. And as soon as it comes south, Greece, particularly Greece, they love prepaid as well, because you don't get a bill home. Yeah, and sometimes that's pretty good. But of course, when the people who invented prepaid had no idea what people loved about the issue. And it was interesting when I worked with Vodafone in Egypt together. There was the girl who was the manager of postpaid, the traditional billing. And she was so desperate because her market share in Egypt is 4%. Only 4% of the Egyptians get a bill. And for an Egyptian to ask, so what do you think about getting a bill? They say, like, why should I get a bill? What is so obvious for us getting a bill, for him is, or her, it's totally, they don't understand why you should get a bill, because prepaid is so normal. And quite often, and this is very important for us, we think so close in our boxes we use, or we know from our past, that we don't see new things for innovation. And most of the ideas I heard about, they're very obvious. They're very typical. If you go to Berlin, pretty much the same ideas in the moment. Find something which suits Estonia or your home country much more, and you think which can be exported abroad. For example, why one is one of the most successful export goods here is cyber defense. Oh yes, you have a disadvantage of having the Russians next around the border and they attack you. That is perfect for building up core competencies to defend yourself. And that's something you can export easily because everybody believes you that you know this market. While having a food basket, I don't know what the Estonians know better about food baskets when they want to export this idea to Berlin than the guys from Berlin. So I think it's very important. We need new boxes for new ideas. And actually, these are the boxes on the canvas. It's interesting, none of you came up with technology innovation, because usually when I teach a lot at technical schools, we have a lot of engineers who come up with patents. I like technology innovations, but they have to be used for something else later on. Unfortunately, nobody came up so far from you. Oh, you are a little bit here, like process innovation. Think about like what just-in-time did to manufacturing. Think about what the assembly line in general did, or what happened to any manufacturing process. Suddenly you could produce much cheaper. You can be innovative in your processes as well. In my opinion, one of the best innovation ever happened was this metal box, because that's the reason why we can drink in Estonia beer from Australia, because it's so cheap to ship a container. And the innovation is very simple. Standardize the box, and then you don't have to care what's inside. In the past, you had package material for everything, so the shipping was much more expensive. That's the reason why shipping the bottle from Australia to Hamburg is 2 € per bottle. Nothing. Actually, it's more expensive to ship it than in Europe than shipping over the ocean, thanks to this metal box. Think how stupid easy this metal box is, but very difficult to implement later a system which works on it. This is the classical way, product and service innovation. That's usually what we think about. We're so focused on product and services. And Nokia had everything. They had a touch phone, they had a smartphone, they had everything. Somehow they couldn't bring it to the market. And this is my favorite innovation type. Who does not know what this is? What is it? Who knows what it is? What is it? Which company? Which company? IKEA.
Cheap wrench.
Yeah, I don't even know the word, but it's interesting. You could put this up in Egypt. They have no IKEA. And 85% of my audience said, I know it. Isn't it fantastic that you invent something simple as this, that you assemble something, or you don't assemble it, you sell it deassembled, then people have to ship it. That's innovation. He changed dramatically the business landscape of all in retailing in general. So this is the reason why I like business model innovation, because it looks easy from the outside, but inside there's so many more components you can't copy. Because why is it so difficult to copy IKEA? Is there any other global company which is similar to IKEA? Why? I mean, there's no patents, nothing to project this business model. Why do you think was this never copied? Any idea? I think one of the main reasons is it contradicts the current customer. Can you imagine, like 30 years ago or 20 years ago, you asked the customers of a classical furniture shop, so I have a great idea. Instead of I bring the furniture to you, you can buy the furniture immediately here, then you have to transport it home, and then you have to assemble it. What do you think about the idea? Crazy. Nobody would have said, I like this, I need this. Because only if you see how it works, you understand why there's such a high value in it. Because the idea is that you have instant satisfaction. You get the bed when you need it, and you don't have to wait 8 weeks for it. This is why it's so difficult to understand, because current customers don't like it. Most of the time, this is called disruptive innovation. Have you done some or heard the differentiation between sustaining versus disruptive innovation? Have you done any work on this? Good. We do this then tomorrow. Because that is one of the cores. We always believe that complicated things are difficult to copy. No, sometimes the most easiest things are the ones the most difficult to copy, when they contradict certain dominant beliefs how business is being run today. So very important, innovation comes in different forms. It's not just product innovation, it's processes, services, business models, everything. And just remember, this is the most innovative company when it comes to products, bringing out a lot of products, and they got killed by one device. Because why is it so important that one device? Because if you look at the competition, Apple sticks out of the crowd. Because one device is much easier to market than the 118 devices Nokia had in Germany available in 2008. That was impossible to have marketing for all these new devices Nokia was bringing out. But every time Apple is bringing out a new phone, it's like, something new is happening. Everybody, all newspapers are full of it. So innovation is not about only bringing out new things, it's about being different. Unfortunately, if everybody copies you, you have to run, and find, again, your white spot here. Innovation is all about being different. And the best industry landscape you want to have is where everybody is different. You don't want to be the next Groupon, because there are 500 clones already of Groupon. You want to have something which might not be as big as the next Google, but might be big enough for you and your family and your 200, 400 employees to pay the salary for the next 20 years. That is a good business model. That's the reason why I'm not a big fan of all the American entrepreneurial stuff, because they only go for the big deal, while a lot of good innovation takes time to develop, but then it's almost impossible to kick you out of your position. Look at Yahoo. It went up, huge value, collapsed. And I prefer companies who go, probably that's the reason why I'm Swiss. Very important is innovation is not about new things, it's about differentiation. For example, if everybody is baking bread in an industrialized way, what is most of the case today, if you're a bakery artisan, like a handcrafted, that's innovation as well, because you're just doing things differently. And here you have done this before. Technology is one part. That's the reason why I like physics a lot. But what is even more important about physics coming out with new, fresh technology ideas is this is exactly the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur is not the guy who gets a Nobel Prize. The entrepreneur is the guy who sees the fuller C60 molecule and thinks like, well, I have a great application for it. It's always what we do out of a technology innovation. So the transistor was, for example, invented in the 40s, but actually the Americans had no idea what to do with this. And the Bell Laboratories, the only idea they had was, let's make some hearing aid out of it. Nowadays, it's almost impossible to imagine anything without a transistor. But at that period of time, they had no idea what to do with the transistors. And it was actually a guy from Japan, Morita-san, who said like, well, I can make small radios. So do you think that's a great value proposition in the US to have a small radio in the 50s? Do you think Americans need small radios? Anybody from the US here? So do you think they need small radios in the US? No, because they have big houses. So it had to be somebody from Japan or later from Korea to see the advantages of small things. And from this little device, you understand probably why Steve Jobs adored Sony until the 80s. This is aluminum, right? And this is already aluminum. Just one device to find the right radio station, a turn button. Look at the iPod 40 years later, looks pretty much the same. Now, Steve Jobs always said it, I loved Sony because of the simplicity. And Sony lost the magic when they wanted to grow larger and larger and larger. And now they're, as Nokia, they're almost bankrupt. Another interesting example here from that area, Hans Rausing. You have heard about the sad history of his, I think, grandson and stepdaughter. He was the inventor of the Tetra Pak system. What do you think was his invention? What did he invent? When you talk about Tetra Pak, I mean, you're the Tetra Pak generation. What's the Tetra Pak all about? What's the innovation in the Tetra Pak?
Geometric shape.
Geometric shape, so it can staple it much higher. Yeah. But what do you think was the real innovation behind the Tetra Pak?
Get away from glass bottles.
Yeah. But what was, I mean, it's interesting. the technology innovation is very simple. He has a patent for putting plastic with paper together, so it can be sealed, and you can make exactly any shape boxes for liquids out of it. But he always said, no, this is not my innovation, because that was a young guy, a young engineer. He got 6-month bonus for this innovation, for sticking plastic on paper and making boxes out of it. What do you think was the real innovation of Tetra Pak? Imagine you have this patent. What's your idea? What do you do with this patent later on? I mean, he was in the machinery business. He could have sold package machines, right? So he takes his patent and says, okay, I built a machine where you can put your milk into boxes, and I sell a machine. So on the bill, in the end, you have something called one machine, 6 million euro. But do you think he sells machines, the guy? Tetra Pak is selling machines. Any idea what Tetra Pak is selling? What's on the bill? I want to know exactly, and this is why it's so fantastic to work with the canvas in the end, is it has to be precise. So what's on the bill?
License.
No, then it would be not licensed, no.
Renting.
Renting. No, a kind of renting. He sells filled packages. So you get the machine for free, you get the package material for free, but every time a block of milk comes out of the machine, you have it on your bill. So it's cloud computing, it's cloud packaging in a way. So you pay only for what you use. So what is the huge advantage of selling this kind of packaged services or goods? Do you want to sell me a machine for 6 million euro? I'm the owner of a dairy plant, and I have a big glass bottling machine. And you want to come with this machine and want to sell me. Make a sales pitch.
But I probably will more earn money with every package.
No, sell me, not argue, sell me. Do you want to get rid of this machine? What's the advantages of Tetra Pak? It's hygienic, but every time you say like, oh, the machine is just 6 million, I say, oh, I have a plant already. Why should I have another one? And then you have no argument anymore. If you come like this here, do you want to try it? We put in a small little plant, and when you like it, we can build a better one for you. So the level or the barrier of entry for your product is much lower with this business model. Of course, much more capital intensive. I mean, you have to finance your machines before. So what do you think is the volatility, or how did the revenues of Tetra Pak evolve during the last recession? Very stable, a little bit up probably, because milk you consume anytime. Milk is actually growing. They have different problems in them, but milk, in the Arabic countries, they love milk. So it's very stable. So what's happening if you're in the machinery business? How was your last 3 years? How did your turnover look like, your sales? Wow. A friend of mine runs a machinery company, minus 70% in 6 months. Can you imagine how to get to keep your people busy? So you see, it's the same product you sell, or the customer sees the same, but it's totally different business model in between. And the reason why the Rousing family is so rich is because he invented this business model. Actually, this is the business model everybody uses in the packaging industry. When you have like water bottles, it's always the same business model now behind. It's the packaging business model. And it's another interesting thing. It's a company from Austria, very close to Switzerland. They have a market share probably of 50% worldwide for PET bottles. 600 people working in Austria and 18,000 outside. And they started with a little plastic factory some 40 years ago. And it took them quite a while. And nobody knows this company. And this is great for them. Because if you're not known, there's less competition. So very important, this is one of the few slides you should always have in your mind. If you have a great product or technology, it does not create value. The value is always being created by something else, and that's the business model. But first of all, if you have a product, you should always look at what kind of new strategy, business strategy is being made possible by this new product or technology. And in your business strategy, you define your business model, and the business model is the one who transfers your input into value for you and for your customer. Unfortunately, there's no direct way. I mean, you have seen this slide before from Ala. Your business model is decisive for value creation, not your product and technology. Unfortunately, we spend so much time when it comes to strategy and everything on execution, and we love to optimize things. But to develop a good business model is all about doing the right things. And a lot of your ideas here are the wrong ideas. Sorry. And you will spend now 3 weeks to optimize the wrong idea. That's fine. But probably if you have already some doubt and you think, yes, the customer insight is right, but what we do out of it is already or is not clear enough, then go one step back, exactly what he is saying, or what Lean Startup is saying is that focus again on understanding what the customer need is, and then make some options how you could fulfill it. Because we love to work very deeply on one idea instead of looking what might be options to solve this customer problem. You have this question before, what is the business model? And this now it becomes a little bit philosophical because it's a little bit more than these 9 components, I think. First of all, it's the DNA of life. It's the DNA of your firm. And the fantastic part is, I have no idea how my DNA looks like. It still works. And your company is pretty much the same. Hopefully it will work someday later, and you have sometimes no idea why this works. This is the technocratical part of your business. You can have like building stones and you build your company. But one thing you should never forget, it's not science. Business is not science. Business is about human beings, and you can say almost love. Because you should always ask, why should your customers love you? Why should your customer get excited about your business model? Because that is where the money comes from. Why is your customer getting excited? But also, why should the best programmers in the world work for you? Why should the best engineers come to you and work for you? You have to give meaning to the people. It's not a technocratical stuff. It's all about values. People work for values and not for money, except if you're an investment banker. So the 4 questions: what is a business model? I mean, you probably understand what is the first. What excites our customers? And this is also almost like a pitch. First say what you do, then say why should your customer get excited about you? I call it the value proposition. It's a little bit different there, but don't worry about it. Just take what Alex says on his canvas. But in the end, you have to answer that question. What excites your customers? How do we do it? You had this before. How do we earn money? Because I believe that the costs and revenue streams should be one box, because in the end it has to level off. Because you can have much higher costs, actually, when you even have much higher revenues. I will come up with tomorrow with some examples. And what is most of the time missing is the love part. And this is exactly who's in your team and what values do we pursue. Do you think Google had a good business model when they started? Any idea what the business model of Google was when they started? Because it's an interesting story. They had a search algorithm. Who's a hardcore programmer here? Good. You know what an algorithm is. It's some sexy formula, but that's it. And you think, wow, this is cool. You remember when when the Nobel Prize winner said, do you get excited about a formula? Yeah, you remember, and most people don't get excited. These guys had a great search algorithm. And they said, wow, this is great. So what do you think they did? They went out to Yahoo and said, oh, we got a great new search algorithm. Do you want to buy it? And Yahoo said, no, we got a better one. So nobody wanted to have this search algorithm. So they said, like, okay, I think we need a prototype. So they built their own search engine. They called it Backrub in the beginning. Very strange name, actually, Backrub. And then they called it Google, because they wanted to have as many information as possible. So they called it Google. And then more and more customers came, or not even customers. Customers are the ones who pay. The users came. The question was, oh, we have no money. There were no revenue streams. So the next idea was, okay, now we go to Yahoo again and say, like, oh, we don't sell our algorithm anymore. What we sell a service. Instead of your crappy search engine, we put our search engine in there, and you pay us for every search. And Yahoo said, oh, great, we're not in the search business anymore because we are now in the media business. That's like how they define themselves. They want to be portals. They said, oh, great, Google, that's not important anymore. You do the search. And suddenly, all great portals used Google search technology, but the revenues came from Yahoo. And then it was very obvious to go to the next step, to discover that small advertising and search fit very well together. And suddenly, boof, they had this huge, fantastic business model. It took them 4 years or 3 years to figure this out. And this is the reason why I like the last slide of the Nobel Prize winner, because he showed how he discovered things. That was not a linear approach. Oh, I went to, vibrating carbon chains. Then we figured out they're in space. Oh, and then we went, and suddenly he had the C60. He said, like, I don't actually know what to do with the C60, but we found out a new way of doing chemistry. And this is quite often what business model is also about, is discovery driven. It's a discovery process. But you can help yourself to improve that. And this is very important. You need to look differently at your business. So, for example, who are your competitors if you're in this power tool industry? Who's your competitor here? Who has a drilling machine? So, who's competitor to Bosch? Hilti? Metabo? Very hardcore. You love hardcore. Hilti. Who said Hilti? Wow, it's not a profession. I mean, this is consumer goods. I mean, you go for the real big stuff. Huh? It's against Swiss Liechtenstein. We love engineering.
But I don't have one.
Huh?
I just know the brand.
Yeah. It's interesting because Hilti does not define themselves via the industry, power tools. They define themselves what they do for the customers. That's the reason why they switched their name from power tools to fastening technology, to fasten something against the wall. And suddenly they see a lot of new opportunities. This is exactly what I want to show you with this slide, because most people look at the competitors from the product side. But the customer thinks differently. So what is a customer doing with screws and dübel? A drilling machine, metal screws, and a dübel. What's the customer usually doing with this? Oh. Probably wants to hang up a picture, right? So who's your major competitor for hanging up a picture? Since you don't seem to do it with a hammer, with a drilling machine, screw, and a dübel. How do you hang up pictures? Glue, exactly. Tesa power strips or whatever. What's the cheapest and easiest version?
Hammer.
Hammer and nail, exactly. So you see, when you get rid of your traditional way of looking at your competitors via the products towards the what job does your customer solve with your tool, You see a lot of new opportunities, but also a lot of new competitors. Because there's so many better ways to hang up a picture than with a hammer and a nail, but still it's a competitor to you. So the value proposition, and that is very important, is what excites the customer is not the product. This is the major mistake actually he has on the canvas. The value proposition is everything which creates value for your customer. So first of all, you have to know your customer segment, but you also have to understand what job you solve for your customer. And then you define what's the value you create for your customer. Because a hammer and nail, what's the value of a hammer and nail for the customer? Quick and dirty, it works. Yeah? I mean, because if you're not landlord, you don't care how many cracks you have in the wall. Buff, buff, because the picture is in front of it. If you, the owner of a Picasso, you probably don't want to put this up with a hammer and nail. You want to have a professional solution. So the value is different of these solutions, but it's the same job you solve for your customers. And now I want to show you very simple things which made the inventor a millionaire. Anybody who knows this here? What is it?
It's a Christmas tree.
It's a Christmas tree stand. Do you have one of this?
No, the same one.
Yeah. Who has this one at home? 2 people already. It's interesting. What countries are you coming from?
Czech Republic.
Czech Republic?
Romania?
Romania? Wow. This guy, he was a farmer, and he's called Mr. Grinner, somewhere in eastern Bavaria, very close to Czech Republic. And he always thought putting up a Christmas tree is a pain, because somebody has to hold it, and then somebody else has to lie on the ground and put in the screws on the tree. And he said, you can make it easier. He invented this thing. He is world market leader now for Christmas tree stands, because nobody believes that this is a market, because the market before was, how many being sold before? 10,000, whatever, very few. He sells this Christmas tree stand by millions, because he figured out that there's an unsolved job for the customer. It's called Christmas tree stand. And you should Google sometimes Grinner Christmas tree stand. It is so funny because a lot of Americans said, like, this saved my marriage. Because if you're not married, but this is typical, shortly before Christmas, everybody is stressed. So this damn tree has to stand still. And one person lies on the ground, the other says, it's straight. You can have a lot of hassle with. With this, you just push the button and it works. And Mr. Grinner is a very clever guy. He invented something else. Do you see? Can you imagine what this is? It's a screw, is it? He did something. His smallest screw is 60 centimeters, and his longest screw is 3 meters and 20. Any idea what these screws are for? As a farmer, who has a background in farming? Dads? How do you build a fence? There are 2 ways of getting a fence up. The easy way is a pole and a hammer. It doesn't last that long. What's the sophisticated way? You dig a hole, put some concrete in there, an iron peak, and then you put up the fence. It takes 2 days. This guy said, I can do it easier. Why not invent the earth screw? So he's now in the business of temporary earth fixing. You might laugh about this idea. This is 60 million euro turnover. And he is having a great time because all solar panels in Spain, which are being constructed on land, not on the roof, they use his screws. And he actually had no idea what the market was all about, because he had no idea how many people had the problem to screw something to the ground and then remove it after a while. But he said, this is an uncontested market because it's kind of difficult in the moment. Why not do it? This is typical for the right value proposition, to look at the customer segment and for a job which is unsolved there. I just skipped some slides. Yeah, then it's very important, this is exactly how do you create the value, because it's not only the product which fulfills your value proposition, it's everything. If you have the wrong revenue streams, which does not support your value proposition, you fail. The value proposition is what you promise, and everything else, all other components have to fulfill it. But that's the reason why I put the offer in the how. Because the offer is just one component to fulfill it. The rest you have seen, distribution channels, how you produce this, core activities, what are your capabilities, how to do it, and what partners. And what is very important about the partners you have there is what is the value proposition for your partner? Why should your partner work with you together? Why should somebody take your product into its distribution system? Think about not only about the value proposition for the end customer, but also for your core partners. Then you got the revenue model. I mean, you have seen this. You have the cost structure and the revenue sources. Nothing new. But then, very important, even more important, is the team. Think about the two guys from Google. The only constant in their business model was the team. So before you decide you want to go with this business model, I think the best thing about this 3 weeks is you really got to know the other person pretty well. Is he a visionary? Is he somebody who's very good at executing? Is he promising something he can't fulfill? Or is he just somebody who's great? He just promised whatever he can fulfill. This is something you can figure out here very well. That's the reason. Who's in your team and what competencies do they bring into the team? This is probably not something you can design here, but later on when you decide to go for your own company, think about the team, and also very important, think about the values. Anybody who's not familiar with the idea of Groupon, the social buying coupon, rabatt, or a discount platform. These guys actually were never very good in creating value in the firm. They were very good in getting a story around it and pushing the idea then into an IPO. Because their values was all about getting rich quickly. Nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong with this. I hope somebody here will become a billionaire in 5 years. But it's a totally different story if you believe that you want to give your company, which is probably a 3,000 people company in 30 years, to your kids. You have totally different values. Either become rich quickly, that's the American way, or you build something which lasts. That's totally different values. I'm not saying one is better than the others, it's just different. And culture is always something very difficult for the people to explain, but this short cartoon, I think, says everything about it. And unfortunately, I worked too much with Microsoft in my life. And these guys have great ideas, but since they always fight each other, they have no way to get it into the market. I mean, they were the first with tablets, but they didn't do anything out of the idea of tablets because it was not supported by the Office guys. Or they had something like the MSN Communicator. Did they do anything out of it? No, because they were unable to get an integral overview. And probably one reason is they have a very strange system, which is called stack judgment. So everybody in your team, you have to say, okay, we have a normal distribution curve, and you always have to have one loser in 10 persons, regardless how good the team worked. So you always kill team efforts. Microsoft is all about killing team efforts. Because one person always has to be the loser in the team. Even if he's the best person possible, the team cannot work as a team at Microsoft, unfortunately, because I think it's a great company. Anybody who worked already with Oracle? You never probably negotiated licenses with Oracle, because this is, for the people who can't read it, this is the legal department, and this is the engineering department. Because you can never have enough licenses if you work with Oracle, because that is their business model. It's easy to get on Oracle, but it's almost impossible to get rid of them. You always pay more. Actually, that's it from my side for today. Tomorrow, we will do a little bit more of examples. Unfortunately, my business or my canvas looks a little bit different, but it's not that important. I have some cards, and this is pretty much like a memory card for you. Just take every second person. I thought it was only 30 persons here. I brought only 30, so it's probably for each team, it's like 3, 4. And it's the core questions you have. And please, in the next half day and then the next week, always take a look again at the questions. Because what is the most important part is not filling in blanks, but understanding if you don't have an answer, leave it blank, please. Because that is extremely important. Because otherwise you think, oh, I've solved all problems, but you haven't. A good business model might be something like, I have a great value proposition, I understand what the customer's job is, I think I know what the product will be like, but we have to work on the distribution channels. Because you can't have all answers already today. So leave blanks blank. So this is the name of Steve Blank, right? Leave Steve blanks. Okay, take this, and tomorrow we will go back a little bit on examples, because it's interesting that a lot of innovations are not huge innovations, but they use some ideas from other industries like mass production technology they use in medical services, and suddenly something totally new emerges. Thank you very much from my side, and I think it's now time for you to work again. Good.